Welcome to the Sleep Library. Tonight, we're going to take a walk together. A slow, quiet walk through a library. But this isn't just any library. This is a conceptual space. A place that exists in the mind, where every book ever written rests on shelves that extend beyond sight, where silence is so complete it becomes almost tangible, almost a presence of its own. Close your eyes if you haven't already. Let your shoulders drop. Unclench your jaw if it's tight. Let your tongue rest gently in your mouth. There's no destination we need to reach tonight. No particular book we must find. We're simply going to wander together through these quiet halls. You don't need to remember any of this. There's no test tomorrow. No quiz on which section we visited or what books we saw. Just let these words wash over you like gentle waves. Let your breathing slow to match the pace of our walking. Feel yourself sinking deeper into your pillows, deeper into rest, as we begin this quiet journey into the library of the mind. Let's begin. Long pause. Section 1. Arrival and the entrance hall. You're standing on a wide stone pathway. The surface beneath your feet is smooth granite, worn by centuries of footsteps, polished to a soft sheen that catches the late afternoon light. Ahead of you, perhaps 50 yards distant, stands the library. It's an old building, but not ostentatiously so. The architecture speaks of the late 19th century. That era when libraries were built to inspire reverence, to suggest that knowledge itself was a kind of cathedral. The facade is pale limestone, cream-colored with the faintest suggestion of warmth, as if the stone has absorbed centuries of sunlight and holds it still, glowing gently in the dimming day. Tall windows line the front of the building, each one arched at the top, each one divided into smaller panes by dark wooden frames. From where you stand, you can't see clearly through them, but you can perceive the suggestion of warm light within, the amber glow of lamps lit against the coming evening. The air is still, remarkably still. There's no wind, no rustling of leaves, no distant traffic sounds. Just silence. And the soft sound of your own breathing, and the gentle pad of your footsteps as you begin to walk forward along the stone path. Each step is unhurried. There's no reason to rush. The library will wait. It has waited for centuries. It will wait a few moments more. As you draw closer, details emerge. The main doors are enormous, easily 12 feet high, made of dark oak that's been oiled until it gleams like amber. Carved into each door is an intricate pattern of leaves and vines intertwining with one another in a design so complex you could spend hours tracing the path of a single stem. But you don't need to trace them now. Just notice them as you approach. Notice how the carving catches the light, creating shadows and highlights, giving depth to the wood. There are 7 broad stone steps leading up to the doors. The same pale granite as the pathway, the same worn smoothness. You place your foot on the first step, then the second. There's a rhythm to climbing these steps, a slow, meditative progression upward. 3rd step, 4th. Each one slightly concave in the center, worn down by countless feet over countless years. 5th, 6th, 7th. Now you're standing before the doors. Up close, they're even more impressive. The wood grain is visible beneath the oil finish, swirling patterns like water flowing, like time itself made visible. There's a scent here. Faint but distinct. Old wood, aged varnish, and beneath it all, the subtle perfume of paper and ink that seeps out from within. The right-hand door has a large brass handle, curved and smooth, worn to a soft gold by the touch of countless hands. You reach out. Your fingers wrap around the metal, and you can feel its coolness, its weight. You pull. The door swings open with a deep, soft sound, a whisper of hinges that have been maintained perfectly for decades. No squeak, no groan, just a low, smooth exhalation as the door opens inward. And then you step across the threshold. The entrance hall is vast. Your footsteps, which were inaudible on the stone pathway outside, now create the softest echo as you move from the granite steps onto polished marble. The floor is black marble, shot through with veins of white and gray, polished so thoroughly that it reflects the ceiling above like dark water. The ceiling itself is at least 30 feet high, coffered, with each square recess painted a deep cream and trimmed in gold leaf that has faded to a soft, warm tone over the years. A massive chandelier hangs from the center of the ceiling, brass and crystal, not lit now, but catching what natural light remains from the windows and scattering it in tiny, dancing points across the marble floor. The walls are paneled in more dark wood, possibly mahogany, possibly walnut. It's hard to tell in this light, but the wood glows with the same deep warmth as the doors outside, and between the panels are tall bookcases, glass-fronted, filled with what appear to be reference volumes encyclopedias, atlases, dictionaries in multiple languages. Directly ahead, perhaps 40 feet away, a grand staircase rises to the upper floors. It splits into two branches halfway up, curving left and right to reach a mezzanine level. The banister is more of that dark, glowing wood, and the stairs themselves are carpeted in a runner of deep burgundy, held in place by brass rods that gleam at each step. But you're not going upstairs yet. Not yet. To your left, an archway opens into what you intuit is the main reading room. To your right, another archway, this one leading to the circulation desk and the beginning of the stacks. The silence here is profound. It's not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of absorption. Every sound you might make is swallowed by the wood, the carpet, the thousands upon thousands of pages of books surrounding you. Even your breathing seems quieter here, muffled, gentle. You can see a few other people in the distance, not many, perhaps 3 or 4 figures, moving slowly through the space or sitting at distant desks. But they're like ghosts, barely perceptible. Part of the library itself, rather than intrusions into it. No one speaks. No one would dare disturb this silence. There's a smell here that's impossible to describe to anyone who hasn't spent time in old libraries. It's the smell of paper, yes, but not fresh paper. Aged paper. Paper that has absorbed decades of air, of temperature changes, of the subtle oils from countless fingers turning countless pages. Mixed with that is the smell of leather bindings, the slight mustiness of old glue, the faint suggestion of wood polish and furniture wax. It's not unpleasant. In fact, it's deeply comforting, this smell. It suggests preservation, care. The long stewardship of knowledge. You stand in the center of the entrance hall for a moment, simply absorbing the space, simply being present in it. Your breathing has slowed without you realizing it. Your shoulders have dropped even further. There's something about this place that encourages stillness, that invites you to move slowly, to think slowly, to simply be. And now, after a long, quiet moment, you begin to move toward the left archway, toward the main reading room. Your footsteps whisper against the marble. The sound is so soft, it's almost imaginary. Section 2. The main reading room. You pass through the archway, and the space opens before you like a revelation. The main reading room is, without exaggeration, one of the most beautiful spaces you've ever seen. It's not beautiful in a showy way, not ostentatious or overwhelming. Rather, it's beautiful in its perfect proportion, its absolute dedication to purpose, its quiet dignity. The room is rectangular, or perhaps a double square. It's difficult to judge exactly from your vantage point near the entrance. It must be at least 100 feet long and 70 feet wide. The ceiling is high, vaulted, supported by exposed wooden beams that arch across the space like the ribs of some great, gentle creature. Between the beams, the ceiling is painted the palest blue, the color of sky just after dawn, or just before full darkness falls. Along both long walls, windows stretch from about 4 feet above the floor all the way up to just below the ceiling line. They're those same tall, arched windows you saw from outside. And now, from within, you can see that they're fitted with small panes of glass. Each pane slightly irregular, slightly wavy, handmade glass from another era. The light that filters through them is soft, diffused, gentle. Late afternoon sunlight, golden and tired, slanting across the room in visible beams where dust motes drift lazily, infinitely slowly, like planets in some microscopic solar system. The floor here is not marble, but wood. Wide oak planks, dark with age and polish, running the length of the room. They're covered, in places, by large oriental rugs in deep reds and blues and golds, their patterns faded to a gentle suggestion of their former brightness, their pile worn smooth by decades of feet. And the tables, oh, the tables! There must be 20 of them, arranged in 2 rows running down the length of the room. Each table is massive, solid oak, at least 12 feet long and 4 feet wide. The wood has been oiled and cared for until it glows with a deep, warm luster. You can see the grain clearly, swirling patterns in the wood, knots that have been carefully preserved rather than cut away, each one telling a story of the tree this wood once was. Each table is equipped with reading lamps. These are not modern lamps, but banker's lamps. Brass with green glass shades, the kind that pool light downward onto the work surface, while leaving the rest of the room in gentle dimness. Some are lit, casting perfect circles of yellow-green light onto the table's surfaces. Others are dark, waiting. Around the tables are chairs, wooden chairs, oak to match the tables, with curved backs and wide seats that have been fitted with leather cushions, green leather, cracked slightly with age, but still supple, still comfortable. Some chairs are occupied by those ghost-like figures you noticed earlier, people bent over books, utterly absorbed, utterly silent. Most chairs are empty, pushed neatly under the tables, waiting for readers who may come tomorrow or next week. Or next year. You move further into the room, your footsteps barely audible on the soft rugs. The silence here is even more complete than in the entrance hall. It's a living silence, a silence that has weight and texture. You can almost feel it pressing gently against your skin, against your eardrums. It's not uncomfortable. It's more like being underwater, but an airy, breathable underwater, where everything is slowed and softened and strangely peaceful. Between the windows on each wall are bookcases, floor-to-ceiling bookcases built into the architecture of the room itself, part of its bones. These aren't the glass-fronted display cases from the entrance hall. These are open shelves, accessible. Inviting touch. And they're filled, absolutely filled with books. The spines face outward in neat rows, creating bands of color that run the length of each wall. Browns and blacks and deep blues and faded reds and occasional bright spots of yellow or green, where a more modern binding interrupts the general tone of age. Some books are tall and thin, others short and fat. Some have titles stamped in gold that catch the light. Others have titles that have faded to illegibility, so you'd have to pull them out and open them to discover what they are. You approach one of these bookcases, drawn by simple curiosity, by the invitation of all those spines. Your hand reaches out, fingers trailing along the books as you pass. Feeling the different textures. Smooth leather, rough cloth, occasional ridge of a spine where gold lettering has been stamped deep into the material. Cool, slightly dusty surface of a book that hasn't been touched in years. You pull one out at random. It's not large, perhaps 5 inches wide and 7 inches tall, bound in dark green cloth that's faded almost to gray at the spine, where sunlight has reached it over the years. The title is embossed in gold, though the gold has mostly worn away. Meditations on the Nature of Time, by someone named Arthur Winslow, published in 1887. You open the book carefully. The pages are thick, cream-colored, rough cut at the edges. They release a subtle scent as you open them. That particular smell of old paper, slightly sweet, slightly acidic, entirely unique. The text is dense, printed in a small serif font with narrow margins. You're not going to read it now. Just holding it is enough. Feeling its weight, its texture, its presence as an object that has survived for more than a century, quietly existing on this shelf, waiting for someone to notice it. You slide it back into place. The fit is perfect, the book disappearing back into the row as if it had never been disturbed. Moving further into the room, you notice the quality of light changing as the sun sinks lower. The beams slanting through the windows are more horizontal now. More golden. They illuminate the dust motes more clearly, and you can see that the air is full of them. Specks of dust and fiber and who knows what else, all drifting in invisible currents, never settling, always moving in that slow, dreamlike way. At the far end of the room, there's a large desk, more ornate than the reading tables. This must be the reference librarian's station, though it's currently unoccupied. Behind it, more bookcases, and you can see that these hold reference works, encyclopedias in matching sets, their spines creating bands of uniform color, almanacs, concordances, bibliographies, indices. The tools of deep research, patient research, the kind of research that takes days or weeks, following one reference to another to another. Building knowledge slowly, carefully. You've reached approximately the midpoint of the room now, and you pause beside one of the reading tables. This one is unoccupied. A lamp is lit, casting its pool of golden green light onto the wood surface. Someone has been sitting here recently. There's an indentation in the leather cushion of the chair, still visible, slowly fading as the leather recovers its shape. And on the table, they've left a book, closed, with a small piece of paper marking their place. You don't disturb it. That would violate the unspoken rules of this place. But you can see the title from where you stand. The Anatomy of Melancholy by Robert Burton. A thick book, densely printed. The kind of book that takes months to read, that rewards slow, patient attention. Looking around the room from this central vantage point, you can see all of it at once. The rows of tables stretching away in both directions. The pools of light from the lamps, islands of brightness in the general dimness. The tall windows with their ancient glass, their gentle distortion of the view outside. The bookcases lining every wall, containing more books than you could possibly count, more books than you could read in several lifetimes. And the people. You can see 5 of them now, scattered throughout the room. One is an elderly man with white hair, sitting very straight in his chair. Reading with a magnifying glass held close to the page. Another is a young woman, early 20s perhaps, with her dark hair pulled back, taking notes in a large notebook with a fountain pen, her movements deliberate and precise. A third figure is harder to make out, someone sitting in the shadows near the far wall, just a silhouette, motionless, perhaps reading, perhaps just thinking. None of them look up. None of them acknowledge your presence or each other's. They're absorbed utterly in their own pursuits, in their own internal worlds that they're navigating with the help of these external texts. The silence presses in again, gentle, comfortable. You realize that you've been standing still for several minutes now, just looking. Just absorbing the space. Your breathing has synchronized with the silence somehow, become part of it. Each breath in is slow, soft. Each breath out is even slower, nearly imperceptible. This is a place where time moves differently. Not faster, certainly not faster. Slower, much slower. Or perhaps time doesn't move at all here. Perhaps it simply accumulates, layer upon layer, like sediment, building up in the pages of all these books, in the wood of the tables and chairs, in the very air itself. You could stay here. You could find an empty chair, pull up to one of these tables, choose a book from the shelves, and simply settle in. Hours could pass, days, even. And you'd barely notice, because the light is always this soft, always this golden, and the silence is always this complete, and time is always this slow. But there are other rooms to explore, other sections of this vast library to wander through. And so, reluctantly, gently, you turn away from the reading room, turn back toward the entrance hall, your footsteps whispering across the rugs, across the wooden floor, under the high vaulted ceiling with its pale blue paint and its arching beams. Section 3. The Stacks, Fiction and Literature. Back through the archway, back into the entrance hall with its black marble floor and its chandelier of brass and crystal, and now crossing toward the other archway. The one to the right, the one that leads deeper into the library, into the stacks. This entrance is narrower than the one to the reading room. Just a simple doorway, wooden frame, no door, opening into a corridor. The walls here are lined with card catalogs, those beautiful wooden cabinets with their hundreds of small drawers, each one labeled with a range of subjects or authors. The brass handles on the drawers are worn smooth and slightly tarnished, dark with patina. You pass by them slowly, reading the labels. Philosophy, Aeschylus to Aristotle. Poetry, British, 18th century. History, Byzantine Empire. Each drawer contains hundreds of cards. 3 by 5 index cards, typed or handwritten, with bibliographic information, call numbers, brief descriptions. A system of organization that predates computers, that relies on human knowledge and careful categorization, and the physical act of pulling open drawers and flipping through cards with your fingers. The corridor extends for perhaps 30 feet before opening into the first section of the stacks. And as you walk down this corridor, the light changes. The windows are gone now. The light here comes from fixtures mounted on the walls, frosted glass shades over dim bulbs, casting a warm but subdued glow. It's enough to see by, but just barely. Just enough to read the spines of books. To navigate between the shelves. You emerge into the stacks, and suddenly the space becomes labyrinthine. Rows and rows of shelving, floor to ceiling, stretching away in both directions. Each shelf unit must be 8 feet tall and 3 feet wide, made of heavy steel, painted a dark forest green that's chipped and worn in places, revealing older layers of paint beneath, dark red, and beneath that, black. These shelves have been here for a very long time. The shelves are packed with books. Not neatly, not with space between each volume, but tightly packed. Books jammed together so firmly that you'd need both hands and a good grip to pull one free. This is a working library, a library where space is at a premium. Where every inch of shelving is utilized. You're in the fiction and literature section. You can tell by the call numbers on the spines, but also by the character of the books themselves. More variation in size and color here than in the reference section. Bright dust jackets on newer hardcovers. Plain cloth bindings on mid-century editions. Leather on the oldest volumes. Mass market paperbacks with their colorful, often lurid cover art jammed between serious hardcovers. You start walking down one of the aisles, moving slowly, running your eyes along the spines. The authors are arranged alphabetically, and you're currently somewhere in the B's. James Baldwin. Multiple copies of Giovanni's Room. Different editions, different years, different publishers. The spine of one is dark blue with silver lettering. Another is black with a minimalist cover design, visible where the dust jacket has been preserved in clear plastic. Samuel Beckett. Waiting for Godot, Molloy, Malone Dies, the trilogy complete in matching gray paperbacks. Saul Bellow. The Adventures of Augie March in a thick hardcover with a worn dust jacket, the colors faded to pastels. You reach out and touch the spine of the bellow. The dust jacket is textured, a kind of rough paper that's uncommon now, and it's slightly sticky with age. You can feel where the plastic cover has been applied. The way it crinkles slightly. Further along, Jorge Luis Borges, Labyrinths, The Elef and Other Stories, Fictions. The spines are various colors, but they all have that slightly faded quality that comes from years of exposure to indirect light. Ray Bradford, The Martian Chronicles, Fahrenheit 451. Something wicked this way comes. The Fahrenheit 451 is a first edition. You can tell by the typography on the spine and the black and red dust jacket, and it sits protected in a clear plastic sleeve. A valuable book, still in circulation, still available to be checked out and read, still serving its purpose despite its value. The aisle continues. Charlotte Bronte, Emily Bronte, Anne Bronte. Their works standing together, a family reunion in alphabetical order. Multiple editions of Jane Eyre, multiple editions of Wuthering Heights. Some cheap paperbacks with cartoonish romantic cover art that completely misrepresents the darkness and strangeness of the novels. Others in elegant hardcover with classical cover designs that suggest the book's actual weight and complexity. You're moving very slowly now, not really looking for anything specific, just looking. Just being present with these books, these objects, these containers of stories and ideas and voices from other times and places. The smell here is different from the reading room, more concentrated, less air circulation. More books per cubic foot of space. The smell of paper is stronger, and you can distinguish between the sweet, vanilla-like scent of older paper and the sharper, almost acidic scent of newer paper. The smell of dust, too, the fine particulate that settles on the tops of books and accumulates in the corners of shelves. At the end of this aisle, you turn right into the next row. The books here continue the alphabet. You're in the C's now. Truman Capote. In cold blood, in a thick hardcover with a stark white dust jacket, the title in severe black letters. Breakfast at Tiffany's in a slim paperback with an illustration of Audrey Hepburn. Even though the character in the book looks nothing like her. Angela Carter. The Bloody Chamber. Nights at the Circus. Wise Children. The spines are colorful, purples and reds and golds, suggesting the Baroque, fairy tale quality of her prose. Willa Cather. My Antonia. O Pioneers, Death Comes for the Archbishop. These are older editions, plain cloth bindings in browns and greens. Titles stamped in gold that's still bright despite the age of the books. You pull out the My Antonia. It's a heavy book, more substantial than you expected. The cloth binding is a deep forest green, and the cover has a subtle texture, a weave pattern in the fabric. You open it carefully. Supporting the Spine. The title page is beautifully designed, letterpress printed, the impression of the type visible on the back of the page. Published in 1918, first edition. The pages are thick, rough-cut, cream-colored with age. There's a library pocket glued to the inside back cover, and inside the pocket is a card, the old-fashioned checkout card. You can see dates stamped on it in purple ink, the most recent from 1997, but above that, dates from the 1970s, the 1960s, stretching back to the 1940s. All these people, dozens of them, checking out this book, reading it, returning it, leaving no trace except these stamps. These dates. You close the book gently and slide it back into place. Further down the row, You pass Joseph Conrad, Heart of Darkness, Lord Jim, Nostromo. You pass Robertson Davies, a complete set of the Deptford trilogy in matching hardcovers. You pass Charles Dickens, and here the shelf space expands significantly because there are so many of his books, so many editions of each book. Multiple copies of Great Expectations, David Copperfield, Bleak House. A Tale of Two Cities. Victorian 3-volume editions in leather. Modern paperbacks with Penguin's distinctive orange and white covers. Illustrated editions from the mid-20th century with the illustrations protected by tissue paper. The aisle seems to go on forever, which is impossible, of course. The library building, large as it is still finite. But here, in the stacks, with the shelves towering above you and stretching away in front and behind, with the light dim and the silence absolute, it feels infinite. It feels like you could walk forever and never reach the end of the D's, never move on to the E's. But eventually you do reach the end of the aisle, and you turn again into another row. And the alphabet continues. Emily Dickinson. Not fiction, but here she is. Her complete poems in various editions. A slim volume from the 1890s, first publication of her work. The poems heavily edited by her first publishers, who didn't understand her punctuation, her dashes, her unique voice. A later edition from the 1950s that restored her original text. A modern scholarly edition with facing page notes and variants. You continue. E. Doctorow, Ragtime, the spine red with black lettering. Fyodor Dostoevsky, and here the shelf space expands again. Multiple translations of each work. Different translators making different choices. Each version a slightly different book. Crime and Punishment, translated by Constance Garnett in 1914, by David Macduff in 1991, by Richard Pevere and Larissa Wolochansky in 1993. Which one is the real Crime and Punishment? All of them, perhaps, or none of them. The real version exists only in Russian, in the original text, and all these English versions are approximations, echoes, shadows on the wall of Plato's cave. But that's a thought too complex to pursue right now. Let it drift away. Just keep walking, keep looking at the books. Theodore Dreiser, Alexandra Dumas, The Count of Monte Cristo in a massive hardcover, 1,200 pages, tiny type. The spine reinforced with cloth tape because it's been opened so many times, the original binding gave way. You're in the F's now. William Faulkner, and the books here feel heavy, both literally and figuratively. The Sound and the Fury, As I Lay Dying, Absalom, Absalom. dense, difficult books. Books that reward slow reading, or so you've heard. Scott Fitzgerald. The Great Gatsby in a dozen different editions. One in particular catches your eye. A 1925 first edition, the dust jacket protected in a clear archival sleeve. The jacket art is iconic. That disembodied face floating over an amusement park. The eyes actually formed by two reclining nudes. Strange, dreamlike, perfect. This book is probably worth thousands of dollars, but here it sits on the shelf, available, in theory, to be checked out and read, though you suspect it rarely is. It's become too valuable to be used for its original purpose. Onward. Gustave Flaubert, Madame Bovary, in French and in English, 3 different translations. E.M. Forster, A Passage to India. Howard's End, A Room with a View. The stacks go on, row after row after row. G, H, I, J, K. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Nikolai Gogol, William Golding, Günter Grass, Thomas Hardy, Nathaniel Hawthorne, Joseph Heller, Ernest Hemingway, Homer, the Iliad, the Odyssey, multiple translations stacked next to each other. Aldous Huxley, Henrik Ibsen. You're not reading the titles anymore, not really. You're letting your eyes blur slightly, letting the colors and shapes of the spines blend together into bands, into ribbons of earth tones and occasional bright spots. You're just walking, just being present in this maze of books. This forest of pages and ink. Your footsteps are so soft they make no sound at all. The floor here is concrete, painted gray, and it simply absorbs the sound of your feet. The only sound is your breathing, and even that seems muted, as if the books themselves are absorbing the sound, drinking it in, adding it to all the other sounds they've absorbed over the decades. You could get lost in here, genuinely lost. Turn left, turn right, walk straight, and after a while, you'd have no idea where you were in relation to the entrance, in relation to the reading room, in relation to the outside world. But it wouldn't matter. Eventually, you'd find your way out, or someone would find you, or you'd simply stay and become part of the library yourself, another figure moving silently through the stacks, absorbed in your own pursuit of something you can barely name. Long pause. Section 4. The Philosophy and Theory Wing. You come to a junction. The aisle you've been following opens into a wider space, a kind of crossroads in the stacks. To your left, the fiction continues. You can see the spines of books by authors whose names start with letters later in the alphabet. To your right, a sign mounted on the end of a shelf unit, White letters on a dark green background. Philosophy, theory. You turn right. The character of the books changes immediately. Gone are the varied sizes and colorful covers of the fiction section. Here, the books are more uniform. Academic texts, scholarly works, treatises and commentaries, and collected essays. The bindings are more sober, blacks and dark blues and browns, occasional dark red or forest green. The spines are labeled with call numbers in neat white stickers, and many have additional labels: reference, do not circulate, special collection. The first section is ancient philosophy. Everything is organized chronologically and then alphabetically within each period. The pre-Socratics first. Fragments of Heraclitus, Parmenides, Anaximander, collected in various scholarly editions. These are slim volumes mostly, because so little of their original writing survived. What we have are quotations preserved in other authors' works, fragments dug out of the ruins of later texts like fossils from stone. Then Socrates. But of course, Socrates wrote nothing. So what we have are dialogues by Plato. Dialogues where Socrates is a character, a voice, perhaps the voice of Plato himself, disguised as his teacher. Multiple editions of the Republic from various publishers, various translators. One is a Loeb Classical Library edition, Greek on the left page, English on the right, both in neat columns, the whole thing compact and dense. Another is a more generous modern edition with extensive footnotes and introduction. The kind of edition used in university courses. You pull this one out. It's heavy, probably 3 pounds, bound in dark blue cloth with gold lettering on the spine. You open it and flip through the pages, not reading, just observing. The footnotes take up nearly half of each page, sometimes more. Tiny type, dense with references to other works, other translations, alternative interpretations. The physical book is a kind of map of scholarly debate, showing you not just what Plato wrote, but how generations of readers have understood it, argued about it, built upon it. You return it to the shelf. Aristotle comes next, and here the shelf space expands significantly. Aristotle wrote on everything: ethics, politics, physics, biology, poetry, rhetoric, logic, metaphysics. The collected works run to multiple volumes, dense and intimidating. You scan the titles: Nicomachean Ethics, Politics, Poetics, Physics, Metaphysics, On the Soul, Categories, Prior Analytics, Posterior Analytics. Some are in standalone volumes, others in anthologies, others in commentaries, where the original text is interwoven with centuries of annotation. After the ancient Greeks, the Romans. Lucretius, On the Nature of Things, a philosophical poem about atomism and the nature of reality. Seneca, the Stoic, letters and essays about how to live a good life, how to face death, how to endure suffering. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. A Roman emperor's private journal that has somehow become one of the most read works of philosophy. The books here are not just objects, you realize. They're time machines. Each one is a voice from the past, speaking across centuries, sometimes millennia. When you open Seneca, you're reading words that were written in the 1st century AD. Words written by a man who's been dead for 2,000 years, but the words still exist, still have meaning, still have power. The physical book you're holding is new, published maybe 30 years ago, but the text inside is ancient, and when you read it, you're collapsing time, bringing that ancient voice into the present moment. You move on. Medieval philosophy now. Augustine, Confessions. City of God. Autobiographical and theological works that bridge the classical and Christian worlds. Boethius, The Consolation of Philosophy, written in prison while awaiting execution. A dialogue between the author and Lady Philosophy personified. Thomas Aquinas, the massive Summa Theologica in multiple volumes, a systematic attempt to synthesize Aristotelian philosophy with Christian theology. Every question imaginable asked and answered in meticulous detail. The books feel heavier here, denser. The font sizes are smaller, the pages thinner to fit more text, the concepts more abstract and difficult. These are not books meant to be read quickly. They're meant to be studied slowly, carefully. Over months or years, modern philosophy begins. Descartes, Meditations on First Philosophy, the book where he doubts everything and rebuilds knowledge from the ground up, starting with, I think, therefore I am. Spinoza, Ethics, written in geometric form, with axioms and theorems and proofs, trying to approach philosophy with the certainty of mathematics. Leibniz, Essays on Metaphysics and Logic, developing ideas about monads and possible worlds. Then the British empiricists. Locke, an essay concerning human understanding, arguing that all knowledge comes from experience. Berkeley, arguing that to be is to be perceived, that nothing exists outside of perception. Hume, taking empiricism to its logical extreme and dissolving causation, the self, everything into bundles of impressions and ideas. Kant comes next, and here you pause. The Critique of Pure Reason sits on the shelf in several editions, all of them thick, all of them intimidating. You've heard about this book. You know its reputation. One of the most important works of philosophy ever written, and also one of the most difficult to read. Dense, technical, inventing new terminology, building an entire system of thought that tries to reconcile rationalism and empiricism, that tries to determine what we can and cannot know. You don't pull it out. Just looking at its spine is enough for now. Knowing it's there. Knowing it contains this vast, intricate system of thought, all of it contained in a physical object that weighs maybe 3 pounds and sits on a shelf in a library where anyone can come and read it if they have the patience and dedication. After Kant, the 19th century. Hegel, Phenomenology of Spirit, even more difficult than Kant, so they say. Schopenhauer, The World as Will and Representation, Philosophy through the Lens of Pessimism and Aesthetics. Kierkegaard, Existentialism before the term existed, writing about anxiety, despair, the leap of faith. Nietzsche, dozens of volumes, chronologically arranged. The Birth of Tragedy, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Beyond Good and Evil, On the Genealogy of Morals, The Gay Science. Twilight of the Idols. The spines are various colors, various publishers, but they all bear that same name, Nietzsche, in neat letters. The 20th century arrives. The books become more specialized, more diverse in approach. Phenomenology, Husserl, Heidegger, Merleau-Ponty. Existentialism, Sartre, Camus, Beauvoir. Logical positivism, Carnap, Ayer. Ordinary language philosophy, Wittgenstein, Austin, Ryle. Critical theory, Adorno, Horkheimer, Marcuse. And then the French wave, structuralism and post-structuralism, dense and difficult and endlessly debated. Foucault, The Order of Things, Discipline and Punish, The History of Sexuality. Derrida, Of Grammatology, Writing and Difference. Texts about language and meaning, and the impossibility of fixed interpretations. Deleuze, Lyotard, Baudrillard, Irigaray. The names continue. The books accumulate. Each one a different approach to the fundamental questions. What is real? What can we know? How should we live? What is the self? What is language? What is meaning? You're walking more slowly now, almost not moving at all, just standing in the aisle, surrounded by these books, these concentrated packets of thought. The silence is complete. No sound but your breathing. And even your breathing seems to have slowed to almost nothing. These books are heavy in a way that has nothing to do with their physical weight. They're heavy with ideas, with the compressed thought of generations of thinkers, each one grappling with the same questions that humans have always grappled with, each one adding their voice to the conversation, building on, or arguing with, or completely reimagining what came before. You could spend a lifetime in this aisle, reading these books, thinking about these ideas, following the arguments and counter-arguments, the systems and critiques and deconstructions. And at the end of that lifetime, you'd know more than when you started, but you'd also know that you'd barely scratched the surface, that there's always more to read, more to think about, more depth to plumb. But that's okay. That's the nature of philosophy. It's not about reaching final answers. It's about the questioning itself, the pursuit, the constant refinement of thought. You breathe in slowly. Breathe out slowly. Let the weight of all these ideas settle around you like a blanket, heavy, but not oppressive, grounding. Section 5. The History Alcove. You continue through the philosophy section, turning corners, following the progression of thought through the 20th century and into the 21st. Contemporary philosophy now. Books on ethics, philosophy of mind, philosophy of science, political philosophy, feminist philosophy, philosophy of language. The spines become more colorful again, more varied, as academic presses compete for attention and relevance. And then the philosophy section ends. You emerge into an open area, a kind of reading alcove carved out between sections. There are 2 comfortable chairs here, upholstered in worn burgundy fabric, with a small table between them, holding a brass lamp with a green glass shade. The lamp is lit, casting a warm pool of light. No one is sitting in the chairs, but they look inviting, sunk in and soft from years of use. Beyond this alcove, a new section begins. The sign reads, History. You step forward into it. The history section has a different feel from philosophy. Where philosophy was dense and uniform, history is sprawling and diverse. Books of all sizes, all thicknesses, covering every period and region imaginable. The section begins with ancient history. Mesopotamia, Sumeria, Babylon, Akkad. Books about cuneiform tablets, about the Epic of Gilgamesh. About laws and trade and the first cities. Then Egypt, pyramids and pharaohs, the Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom, each era with its own shelf space, its own collection of scholarly monographs and popular histories. Greece follows. Not just ancient Greece, but every aspect of it. Political history, military history, social history, economic history. The Persian Wars, the Peloponnesian War, the rise of Macedonia, Alexander the Great. Some books focus on Athens, others on Sparta, others on the smaller city-states that get less attention, but were equally complex in their own ways. Rome, naturally, gets extensive coverage. Multiple shelves devoted to the Roman Republic. Its slow development from a city-state to a Mediterranean power. The civil wars, the transition to empire. The early empire, the high empire, the late empire, the Western and Eastern empires splitting apart. The fall of Rome is a subcategory all its own. Dozens of books arguing about why it happened, when exactly it happened, whether it even fell at all or simply transformed into something else. You pull out one of these books, The Fall of Rome and the End of Civilization by Brian Ward Perkins. It's a recent book, published in 2005, hardcover with a dust jacket showing a broken Roman column lying in grass. You open it to a random page and read a sentence. The removal of the superstructure of the Roman state and the employment of its tax revenues on a more local level did not immediately produce wealth and sophistication at a lower social level. Rather, it rapidly led to the widespread disappearance of the specialized production and goods that had characterized the Roman economy. Dense prose, careful argumentation, the kind of book that would take days to read properly, weighing evidence, considering alternative interpretations. You close it and return it to the shelf. The medieval period sprawls across multiple sections. Byzantine history, with books about Constantinople, about the preservation of classical learning, about the slow decline and final fall in 1453. Islamic history, the rapid expansion of the caliphates. The golden age of Islamic civilization, the Crusades seen from multiple perspectives. European medieval history, kingdom by kingdom, century by century. The Franks, the Vikings, the Anglo-Saxons. The Norman Conquest, the 100 Years' War, the Black Death. Renaissance and early modern Europe. Books about the Italian city-states, about the Medici, about the rediscovery of classical texts and the birth of humanism. The Reformation, with books arguing about Luther, Calvin, the Counter-Reformation, the wars of religion that tore Europe apart. The age of exploration, colonialism, the encounter between Europe and the Americas. You're walking slowly, just scanning titles, letting them wash over you. The Pursuit of Glory, Europe, 1648-1815. The 30 Years' War, Europe's Tragedy, by Peter H. Wilson. The English Civil War, A People's History by Diane Purkis. The 18th Century, Enlightenment, Revolution, the rise of parliamentary government and democratic ideals. Books about the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Haitian Revolution, each one a story of upheaval, violence, the old order being swept away. The 19th century, industrialization, nationalism, empire. Books about the Napoleonic Wars, about the Congress of Vienna and the attempt to restore order. The revolutions of 1848, the unification of Germany and Italy, the American Civil War, the colonization of Africa and Asia, and then the 20th century, where the books proliferate exponentially. World War I alone takes up multiple shelves. Not just military history, but social history, cultural history, the war's literature and art, the way it shattered an entire generation's understanding of the world. The interwar period, the rise of fascism and communism, the Spanish Civil War as a rehearsal for the larger conflict to come. World War II, of course, dominates. Shelf after shelf after shelf. The European theater, the Pacific theater, the Holocaust as its own massive subcategory with hundreds of books, memoirs, histories, analyses, arguments about how it happened, why it happened, how to prevent it from happening again. Post-war history, the Cold War, decolonization. The Civil Rights Movement, Vietnam, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the end of the Soviet Union. And then recent history, so recent it barely feels like history. But history isn't just political and military. As you continue walking through the section, you find social history, books about everyday life in different periods, about what people ate, what they wore, how they worked, how they raised children, women's history, labor history, the history of sexuality, the history of childhood, economic history, technological history, environmental history. There's a whole subsection devoted to the history of specific cities: Paris, London, New York, Tokyo, Istanbul, Cairo, Mexico City. Each city a universe unto itself, with centuries of stories layered upon each other. Another subsection is about historical methodology itself. Books about how to write history, how to interpret sources, how to balance narrative and analysis, how to avoid bias, how to acknowledge the limitations of what we can know about the past. You realize you've been walking for several minutes without really seeing the titles anymore. Just moving through this forest of history, this accumulation of human experience recorded and analyzed and debated. Every event that's ever happened, every person who's ever lived. In theory, they're all here. If not in individual books, then as part of larger narratives, part of the great sweep of human history. And what strikes you, standing here surrounded by all these books, is both how much we've recorded and how much we've lost. For every book on these shelves, how many stories went unrecorded? How many lives were lived and left no trace? How many voices were silenced or never had the chance to speak at all? History is always a fraction, a fragment, a reconstruction based on incomplete evidence. And yet we try. We keep writing, keep researching, keep trying to understand where we came from, how we got here, what we can learn from those who came before. The silence in this section feels different, heavier somehow, as if all these events, all these lives, all this accumulated time is pressing down, creating weight, creating gravity. You find yourself wanting to sit down. That alcove with the comfortable chairs is back the way you came, but you don't want to retrace your steps. So you just stand here, in the aisle, surrounded by history. Letting yourself feel the weight of time. Your breathing has become very slow. Deep breath in, long breath out. The air moving in and out of your lungs is the same air that moved through the lungs of everyone who's ever lived. Atoms that were breathed by ancient Romans, by medieval peasants, by Renaissance artists, by revolutionaries and soldiers, and ordinary people living ordinary lives. We're all connected through this simple act of breathing, through our shared need for air, for time, for space to exist in. Let that thought settle. Let it drift through your mind like a cloud. You don't need to hold on to it. Just notice it. And let it go. Section 6. The Science and Mathematics section. Reluctantly, you begin moving again. One foot in front of the other, slow and steady. The history section continues for a while longer. You pass Asian history, African history, Latin American histories, indigenous histories, but eventually you reach the end. Another transition zone, another shift in the character of the books. The sign here reads, Science and Mathematics. Immediately, you notice the difference. These books are more uniform than the history books, more organized, more precise in their presentation. The spines are mostly plain, without much color variation. Blacks, whites, dark blues. The occasional bright spot, where a publisher decided to use red or yellow. But mostly, these books present themselves as serious, sober, authoritative. The section begins with mathematics. Pure mathematics first, then applied. Books about number theory, abstract algebra, topology, differential geometry, complex analysis. The titles are dense, technical. Introduction to Algebraic Topology, Principles of Mathematical Analysis, a first course in abstract algebra. These are textbooks, mostly, designed for university courses, filled with theorems and proofs and problem sets. You pull one out at random. Abstract Algebra by David S. Dummett and Richard M. Foot. It's enormous. Must be 900 pages. Hardcover with a plain blue cover. You open it and flip through. The pages are filled with symbols, Greek letters and arrows, and diagrams showing relationships between mathematical objects you don't have names for. Occasionally, there's a paragraph of text explaining something, but mostly it's just equations and symbols. A language that's as foreign to you as ancient Sumerian, but perfectly clear to those who've learned to read it. There's something beautiful about it, even if you don't understand it. The precision, the clarity, the way everything builds logically from axioms and definitions. Mathematics as pure thought, pure structure. Relationships between abstract objects that exist only in the mind, but are somehow more real, more solid, more reliable than anything in the physical world. You close the book and return it. Applied mathematics follows. Statistics, probability theory, mathematical physics, computational mathematics, and then physics itself. Classical mechanics first. Newton's laws, force and motion, energy and momentum. Books with titles like Classical Mechanics by Herbert Goldstein, thick textbooks filled with differential equations describing how objects move through space and time. Thermodynamics and statistical mechanics. Entropy, the second law, the arrow of time. The way order tends toward disorder in closed systems. Electromagnetism. Maxwell's equations, elegant and compact, describing all of electricity and magnetism and light in just 4 equations. And then the 20th century revolutions. Quantum mechanics, with its strange world of probabilities and superposition and uncertainty. Books by Dirac, by Feynman, by Griffiths, each one trying to explain or teach this theory that defies common sense but makes perfectly accurate predictions about the behavior of atoms and electrons. Relativity, both special and general. Einstein's insight that space and time are not separate but unified. That gravity is not a force, but a curvature of space-time itself. Books filled with tensor calculus and space-time diagrams showing how clocks run slow near massive objects and how light bends in gravitational fields. You're not reading these books. You couldn't, not really, not without years of study. But you're appreciating them as objects, as containers of knowledge, as maps to reality at scales far beyond everyday experience. Chemistry follows physics, organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, physical chemistry, biochemistry. Periodic tables on the covers of textbooks showing all the elements arranged in their logical structure, each one a different combination of protons and electrons and neutrons. Each one with its own properties and behaviors. Biology comes next. And here, the books become more accessible, more visual. Many have color plates showing cells under microscopes, anatomical diagrams, photographs of organisms in their natural habitats, molecular biology and genetics, the structure of DNA, the code of life, written in 4 chemical letters, A, T, G, C, arranged in 3 billion pairs in the human genome. Books about evolution, about natural selection, about the tree of life, showing how all living things are related through common descent, stretching back billions of years. Ecology and environmental science, books about ecosystems, about energy flow through food webs, about population dynamics and carrying capacity, and the delicate balance that can tip into collapse. Neuroscience and cognitive science. Books about the brain, about neurons and synapses, about how consciousness emerges from the electrical activity of billions of cells, about how we think and remember and perceive and feel. The books continue. Astronomy and cosmology, describing the universe at the largest scales, galaxies and quasars and black holes, the Big Bang and cosmic inflation, and dark matter and dark energy. Geology and earth science, describing the planet beneath our feet, plate tectonics, the rock cycle, the atmosphere and oceans, the history of Earth stretching back 4.5 billion years. You're walking slowly, very slowly, just letting the titles wash over you. All this knowledge, all this careful observation and experimentation and theoretical development, all of it recorded in these books, organized in these shelves, available to anyone who wants to learn. There's something deeply optimistic about this section. Despite all the problems humanity faces, despite all the suffering and injustice and violence recorded in the history section, here is evidence that we can understand the world, that we can observe, hypothesize, test, refine our theories, build models that work, that predict, that give us power to cure diseases and build technologies and send spacecraft to other planets. Science is a collective endeavor. Each generation building on the work of previous generations, correcting errors, adding new data, extending theories into new domains. And all of it is here, preserved in these books, this library serving as a kind of external memory for the species, a place where knowledge is stored and protected and transmitted forward through time. You feel a deep calm settling over you. The precision and order of this section is soothing. Everything categorized, everything findable, everything in its place. Your breathing has synchronized with your slow walking pace. Breath in, 2 steps. Breath out, 2 steps. In, out. In, out. Walking and breathing as a single, continuous meditation. Section 7. The Rare Books Room. At the far end of the science section, you notice something different. A door. Not an archway or an open passage, but an actual door, closed, with a small brass plaque mounted at eye level. You approach it slowly. The door is wood. Dark wood, like all the other wood in this library, but this wood is more ornate. It has molding, carved details, a sense of importance and protection. The brass plaque reads, "Rare Books and Special Collections." Below that, in smaller letters, "Please inquire at main desk for access." But the door is not locked. Or if it is, you discover when you reach out and turn the handle that it opens anyway, swinging inward smoothly. Silently, you step through. The room beyond is smaller than you expected. Not tiny, but intimate. Perhaps 20 feet by 30 feet. The ceiling is lower here too, maybe 10 feet, creating a sense of enclosure, of protection. The lighting is dim, much dimmer than in the main sections. The walls have no windows, and the only illumination comes from small LED lights mounted under the edges of the shelves, providing just enough light to see by without being harsh, without exposing the books to unnecessary light that might damage them over time. The shelves here are different too. Not the institutional metal shelving from the stacks, but wooden shelves, built in. Part of the room's architecture. And the shelves are behind glass. Each section has a glass door with a small lock, protecting the books inside from dust, from moisture, from careless hands. You approach the nearest shelf. The glass reflects your face dimly, a ghost looking back at you. Behind the glass, you can see books, but these books are different from any you've seen so far in the library. These books are ancient. Not all of them, but many of them. Medieval manuscripts in leather bindings that have darkened to nearly black with age. Incunabula, Books printed in the 15th century, in the first decades after Gutenberg's invention. Early modern texts from the 16th, 17th, 18th centuries. Their bindings in various states of preservation, some pristine, others crumbling slightly at the edges. You can't read most of the spines from here. The titles are in Latin or Italian or German, or they're handwritten in scripts you can't decipher. But you can see that these are treasures, books that have survived for centuries, objects of immense historical and monetary value. You move along the wall, looking at each glass-fronted section. One section holds illuminated manuscripts. You can see them through the glass. Books opened to display pages decorated with gold leaf, intricate illustrations in brilliant reds and blues and greens. Initial letters enlarged and embellished with vines and flowers and tiny figures. These books were made before printing, made by hand, one page at a time, by scribes and illuminators who spent months or years creating a single volume. Another section holds what appear to be scientific texts, first editions of important works, Newton's Principia Mathematica, Darwin's On the Origin of Species, Einstein's papers on relativity, bound and collected. Books that changed how humanity understands the world, preserved here behind glass. A third section is devoted to literature, first editions of novels and poetry collections, a Shakespeare second folio from 1632, first editions of Dickens and Austen and the Brontes. First American editions of Edgar Allan Poe, a slim volume that might be a first edition of The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. In the center of the room, there's a large table. Solid wood, oak, or mahogany, with a leather top tooled in gold around the edges. On the table sits a bookrest, angled to hold a book open without stressing its binding. And on the rest is a book already opened, as if someone had been examining it recently and left it for you to see. You approach slowly, carefully. Even though you're alone in this room, even though no one is watching, you feel the weight of responsibility, the need to be cautious, to treat this object with the reverence it deserves. The book on the rest is massive. It must be 3 feet tall and 2 feet wide. Bound in leather that's been dyed a deep burgundy red. The leather is cracked and worn in places, showing the layers beneath, but it's still intact, still protecting the pages inside. The book is opened to somewhere in the middle. You lean in to look. The pages are vellum, not paper. Animal skin, stretched and scraped and prepared to receive ink. The surface is smooth, but not perfectly flat. You can see the subtle texture, the way light catches the surface differently at different angles. The text is handwritten in Latin, in a script that's perfectly regular, perfectly beautiful. Dark brown ink that's held its color for centuries, each letter formed with exquisite care. The lines are perfectly straight. The spacing perfectly even. At the top of the page, a large initial letter, probably 6 inches tall, decorated with intricate vine patterns in red and blue and green, with tiny gold leaf details that catch the dim light and glow. In the margin, there are small illustrations. A monk reading a book, a bird perched on a branch, a tiny castle with flags flying from its towers. These weren't part of the original text, but were added by the illuminator. Decorations, visual prayers, small jokes or observations made permanent in pigment and gold. You don't touch it. You just look, your face close to the page, close enough to smell the faint scent of old vellum, old ink. Aged leather. Close enough to see the tiny imperfections, a place where the scribe made an error and scraped it away, a spot where the ink bled slightly into the vellum, a smudge where perhaps a finger touched the page while the ink was still wet, 700 or 800 years ago. This book has survived. Through wars, through religious upheavals, through fires and floods, and the simple erosion of time, this book has survived. And now it's here, in this library, protected and preserved, still readable, still beautiful, still serving its original purpose of transmitting words across time. You straighten up slowly. Your back aches slightly from bending over the book. You stretch carefully, quietly, and then turn to survey the rest of the room. There are more treasures here, you know. More rare books, more manuscripts, more unique objects, each one with its own story, its own journey through the centuries to arrive here. But you also know that you could spend days in this room examining each item, and you still wouldn't see everything, wouldn't understand the full significance of what you're seeing. So you just stand here, in the center of the room, surrounded by these objects, feeling the accumulated weight of time and care and preservation. The silence is absolute. The room is so well sealed that no sound enters from outside. You can hear your own heartbeat, slow and steady. You can hear your breathing, gentle and calm. Nothing else. This is a sacred space in its way. Not religious necessarily, but sacred nonetheless. Sacred to the preservation of knowledge, to the continuity of culture, to the human impulse to create beautiful things and then protect them so that future generations can experience them too. You feel yourself sinking deeper into calm, deeper into stillness. Your shoulders are completely relaxed now. Your jaw is loose. Your entire body feels heavy, grounded, at peace. After a long moment, you turn back toward the door. Time to continue your journey through the library. Time to see what else awaits. You step back through the doorway. Back into the dimness of the main stacks. Behind you, the rare books room waits, silent and protected, its treasures safe for another day, another visitor, another moment of quiet reverence. Closing. The library will always be here. You know this now, deeply. Not as an intellectual fact, but as a felt truth. The library is eternal. Not in the sense that this particular building will last forever, but in the sense that what the library represents is eternal. The library is memory. The library is knowledge. The library is the human project of preserving and transmitting everything we've learned, everything we've created, everything we've imagined. As long as humans exist, libraries will exist, in whatever form they take. Physical buildings like this one, or digital clouds of data. Or future forms we can't even imagine yet. The impulse to gather and protect knowledge is fundamental to who we are as a species. And you can return here whenever you need to. This specific library, this conceptual library, this library of the mind. The stone pathway is always there. The heavy oak doors are always unlocked. The entrance hall is always quiet and welcoming. The rooms and alcoves and shelves are always waiting, patient, content to wait. Sometimes you'll visit during the day, and the light will stream through the tall windows, illuminating the dust motes, making everything warm and golden. Sometimes you'll visit at twilight, as you did today. That transitional time, when the outside world is letting go of the day, settling into evening. Sometimes you'll visit in deep night, when the only light comes from the lamps scattered throughout the library, creating islands of warmth in the darkness. And sometimes you'll visit in the early morning, before dawn, when the sky is just beginning to lighten, and the library is at its most quiet, its most still, poised between night and day, between sleep and waking. Whenever you come, however you find it, the library will receive you, will welcome you, will offer you its silence and its books and its spaces designed for rest, for thought, for the quiet exploration of ideas. But right now, in this specific moment, you're here, in the chair, in the alcove, in the gallery of the conceptual library that exists both everywhere and nowhere. And you're so very comfortable, so very relaxed, so very close to sleep if sleep is what you need, or so very close to deep rest if rest is what you need. There's no difference, really. Sleep and deep rest are cousins, neighbors, different names for the same general territory of letting go. And letting go is what you're doing now. Letting go of the day. Letting go of worries and plans and thoughts about tomorrow. Letting go of tension you didn't even know you were holding. Letting go of the need to be alert, to be responsible. To be anything other than exactly what you are in this moment. A consciousness resting in a chair in a library, surrounded by silence and books and gentle darkness. Your breath continues, so slow now. Each breath like a wave rolling onto a shore, gentle and inevitable. In, out. The tide of your breathing, constant and rhythmic, requiring no effort, no attention, just happening on its own. And with each breath, you sink a little deeper into the chair, into relaxation, into that borderland between waking and sleeping, where thoughts become strange, where logic loosens, where the world behind your eyelids begins to generate its own images, its own landscapes. Maybe you see the library still, but a dream library now, shifting and changing, rooms leading into rooms you didn't visit, staircases spiraling up into impossibility, books whose titles shimmer and rearrange themselves when you try to read them. Or maybe you see something else entirely. Memories from your own life, surfacing randomly, without narrative order. A room you lived in as a child. A face you loved. A place you visited once and never forgot. Images arising and dissolving like bubbles. Beautiful and brief and gone. Or maybe you see nothing at all. Just darkness. Just the gentle static of closed eyes in a dark room. And that's perfect too. That's exactly right. Whatever you're experiencing, let it be. Don't try to control it. Don't try to direct it. Just watch if you're watching, or just be if you're not watching anymore. The library continues around you, vast and patient. In the reading room far below, perhaps a lamp still burns, illuminating an empty table. In the stacks, the books stand in their endless rows, their spines facing outward, their pages holding words that no one is currently reading, but that exist nonetheless. Potential meaning waiting to be activated. In the rare books room, the illuminated manuscripts rest behind their glass, their gold leaf still glowing faintly even in the darkness, still beautiful even with no one there to see them. In the map room, the drawers full of flattened worlds wait patiently for someone to open them, to unfold the continents, to trace routes with a finger, to navigate imaginary journeys across paper oceans. In the music collection, the records stand in their sleeves, containing hours and hours of music in their grooves, waiting for the needle, waiting to be turned from potential into actual sound, but content to wait as long as necessary. In the children's library, the picture books rest on their low shelves. The moonlight through the windows falling across their colorful spines, illuminating titles like "Goodnight Moon" and "Where the Wild Things Are." Stories designed to soothe children to sleep, and they're doing that work even now, even unread, their presence itself a kind of lullaby. And here, in this alcove, in this chair, you rest. The final piece of the library, the consciousness that moves through it, that observes it, that gives it meaning through your presence. But you're not separate from the library. You're part of it. You're part of it, just as the library is part of you. The books you've read have become part of who you are, their words and ideas woven into your thoughts, your language. Your way of understanding the world. And this journey tonight, this slow walk through the conceptual library, it's become part of you too. A memory you can return to. A place you can visit in your mind whenever you need it. Whenever the world is too loud, too chaotic, too demanding, you can close your eyes and find yourself on that stone pathway, approaching the library doors, stepping into the silence. This gift is yours now. This place is yours. Keep it safe. Return to it often. But for now, for this moment, just rest. Just be here, in the chair, in the alcove, in the library. In the silence. There's nothing more you need to see. No more rooms to explore. No more books to examine. You've seen enough. You've walked enough. You've learned enough. Now is the time for letting go completely. Letting go of awareness itself. Letting consciousness dim like a lamp being turned down slowly, slowly, the light fading but not going out entirely, just fading to a glow, to an ember, to almost nothing. You might already be asleep. You might be hovering on the edge of sleep, that strange state where you're simultaneously aware and not aware, where part of you is still listening to these words, and part of you has already drifted away. Or you might still be awake, but so deeply relaxed that it hardly matters. This deep rest is its own kind of restoration, its own kind of gift. Whatever state you're in, stay there. Don't try to climb back to alertness. Don't try to analyze whether you're asleep or awake. Just stay in this soft, gentle, comfortable space between. The chair holds you. The library holds you. The silence holds you. The darkness holds you. You're held completely, safely, perfectly. Nothing can disturb you here. No noise, no worry, no obligation, no demand. Just this perfect quiet, this perfect stillness, this perfect rest. The lamp beside you might still be glowing, or maybe it's gone out. You can't tell anymore with your eyes closed, and it doesn't matter. The window might still show the tree and the moon and the stars, or maybe you've drifted so far inward that you've lost track of the external world entirely, and that's fine too. Everything is fine. Everything is exactly as it should be. The library has given you what you came for. Not information, not entertainment, not even stories. It's given you peace. It's given you silence. It's given you a place to rest, truly rest, without judgment or expectation or pressure to be anything other than what you are. A human being, breathing slowly, existing quietly, taking up space in the world without apology, without effort. Just being. And that's enough. You're enough. This moment is enough. Let everything else fall away. All the days that came before this moment, all the days that will come after, they're not here now. Only this moment exists. Only this breath. Only this gentle awareness, fading, dimming, dissolving into rest. Sleep if sleep comes, or simply rest if sleep doesn't come yet. Either way, you're doing exactly what you need to do. There's no wrong way to be here. No wrong way to let go. No wrong way to rest. Trust your body. It knows what to do. It's been doing this every night of your life. This transition from waking to sleeping, from doing to being. From consciousness to the deep restoration of sleep. Your body is wise. Your body knows. Let it carry you where you need to go. And if you're still aware of these words, still hearing them in some distant way, that's fine. Let them continue to wash over you like gentle waves, like a lullaby, like the sound of wind in trees or rain on a roof. Natural sounds that soothe without requiring attention, that comfort without demanding anything in return. The sleep library has been with you on this journey, and the sleep library will be here tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, whenever you need it. Whenever you need this silence, this peace, this gentle accompaniment into rest. But there's no rush to return. There's no rush to do anything. Just rest now. Just let go now. Just breathe now, slowly, softly. Your breath so gentle, it's almost imperceptible. The library is settling into its own nighttime rhythm. The lamps are dimming throughout the building. The books are resting on their shelves. The silence is deepening, becoming absolute, becoming perfect. And you're part of that silence now, part of that peace, part of the library's great stillness, its eternal patience, its quiet preservation of everything that matters. Rest well, dear visitor to the Sleep Library. Rest well. Dear wanderer through rooms of books and silence. Rest well, dear consciousness, settling now into the deep comfort of letting go. The library will be here when you wake, if you wake, when you wake. But for now, there's only this, only rest, only peace, only the gentle darkness behind your closed eyes and the soft support of the chair and the endless, perfect silence. Sleep, rest, let go. Good night. Good night.